Aaron and Garrett instantly vibe when they meet, but live in different time zones. As they try to maintain a long-distance relationship, things get tougher as they figure out what to do. Garrett is celebrating the birthday of his girlfriend, Amy, and they are on the couch with some takeout. Amy is ready for her surprise, but instead of a gift, he wants to take her to the bedroom. When she realizes he doesn't have any gift for her, she starts crying. This confuses him, since she asked him not to get her anything. She feels bad. She needs to explain that she only mentioned that so he would get her something great for being the wonderful girlfriend she is. But she knows that even a lot of hints will not make him invest more in their relationship, and decides to break up with him. At the New York Sentinel newspaper, Erin is late for her meeting with her boss Hugh, who thinks her reporting is great but wants it restructured. When her friend Brandy asks what she's doing after it, Erin points out that she's 31 and an intern there, so she's going to get wasted. Garrett can't believe another woman dumped him while his friends, Box and Dan, try to console him. They feel like he might go into an emotional place, but he hasn't exactly cried for anyone since high school. He claims he doesn't even understand what happened, but Dan knows he does this with every relationship. He never fully commits, and when the girl he is dating figures it out, she dumps him and they have to listen to him being surprised all over again. Garrett doesn't believe it and wants to go somewhere to clear his head. Erin is busy playing the centipede game and is not interested in hitting on guys with Brandy. Garrett wants to play the game too and tries to put a quarter in front of her to claim his space. She has no intention of leaving, so he leans in. But this disturbs her game and she shouts at him because she was just about to beat her own high score. He doesn't believe it, but when he finds out that she is Earl, he is starstruck since he has been chasing a guy named Earl for months just to find out who this genius is with the high score. She clarifies that her full name is Erin Rankin Langford and he feels honored to meet her, and wants to buy her a beer as a fellow Centipede fan. Garrett introduces Erin to Box and Dan and explains he owes her a beer for ruining her game, but even Box knows that's a horrible move from his side. It's time for a trivia game at the bar, which needs to be played in teams of 2, and Garrett asks Erin to be his partner, since Box and Dan never work separately. Erin gets the first answer right before the options are even read out, as she's casually enjoying chicken wings. Garrett gets the second one right and informs her that he works at Diesel Records, so it's his job to know about music. Dan gets disqualified for the 9th time in a row for asking a stupid question. But when the next question about Rolling Stones is raised, they both know the answer is Muddy Waters. Erin notices a Tom Cruise poster in his room and he admits he's a huge Top Gun fan. When she reveals her favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption, he starts quoting it and they bond over the movie. He kisses her, but it gets weird soon enough as Top Gun music starts playing from Dan's room, who is also his roommate. The walls are very thin and Garrett reminds Dan he doesn't have to participate just because he can hear everything. Erin claims to be very offended, but reveals it's a joke soon enough since she didn't want him to judge her for loving that they have music coming through the walls. He wakes up to find Erin trying to sneak out of his bed, but when he catches her, she lies down next to him awkwardly to pretend she wasn't sneaking out. They get breakfast, and since last night was very fun for them, he asks for her number. She still informs him that she is leaving for San Francisco in 6 weeks since she has to end her internship and go back to Stanford to finish her grad school. Since he isn't looking for a serious relationship either, she gives him her number and they decide to hang out sometime. Box is jealous of how easily Garrett found another woman in the same night. Their colleague Brianna is back from Miami and discusses with Garrett how great it was to meet her long-distance boyfriend Mark, but thinks meeting just once in 6 weeks for a while is very tough. Garrett gets called by his boss, Will, L, for a meeting, where he plays a song by a band called 3Z, which makes Garrett feel nauseous. As they make fun of them, Will assigns the band to him and refuses to listen to any protests about why he can't handle them. He has gone through the list of bands Garrett recommended but thinks there's a process to everything, and that Garrett will get to choose his bands when he gets promoted. Erin's sister, Kareen, is curious to know if she got a job at the newspaper yet, but Erin knows people there are already struggling to keep their own jobs. Kareen asks her daughter, Maya, to stop the commotion and wants Erin to know she's very far behind in life. Erin agrees but shuts her laptop when Hugh comes to inform her that she's on desk duty. She respectfully asks him for a job there, even if she knows her pieces didn't run. But she wants to make a good impression since this is her dream job. He humors her by assigning a human interest story on a charitable organization, Grant a Dream, for terminally ill children, and asks her to file it and put it on his desk. Garrett asks Erin to meet him for dinner and they discuss their favorite food and music to get to know each other better. There's an instant connection as they relate to each other's sense of humor and they start hanging out a lot more with his friends. They discuss whether they want kids later in life and Garrett shares how he comes to that bench to observe old couples, who seem very satisfied with each other. She thinks this type of understanding can only happen if someone marries their best friend. She's also upset about leaving soon, but Garrett hopes she will come back one day. On Erin's last day at work, she asks for feedback from Hugh about her story. He thinks she's a good writer, which is why they decided to print her story, but he doesn't give a direct reply about whether he can offer her a job, and asks her to call him in January to see how the situation is then. Garrett takes her to a fancy farewell dinner on her last night in New York, where they banter about the horrible wine and the amazing time they spent together. Garrett keeps complimenting her and shares that he has never liked getting to know someone this much. While Erin sleeps soundly that night, Garrett is wide awake thinking about something. He drops her to the airport after a silent ride there and she rushes away when they arrive. He decides to chase her and gets past the security guard, who lets him go because he is chasing a woman who means a lot to him. They discuss how awkward the ride was, and she admits she had an amazing time with him and doesn't want it to end. But she's also scared because she followed a guy once across the country and dropped everything for him, which is why her work timeline is off and she doesn't have a proper job or degree yet. After finally getting her life back on track, Garrett seems to be confusing her again. He knows he doesn't want her to sacrifice anything for him but just asks for permission to keep her in his life. They know they're crazy about each other and decided to do long distance. Erin arrives at Kareen's house in San Francisco to complete her degree and tries to constantly stay in touch with Garrett. He wants her back for Halloween, but the tickets are too expensive for her. Still, they keep texting and watching funny videos together, and even talk to each other on the phone a lot despite the time difference. As Erin and Garrett are trying to work out a time when they can get on a call after she gets off work at the bar, Box gets irritated with Garrett's constant texting and throws his phone across the field. Garrett is worried about how much effort it'll take to fix it, but Box feels it's justified since he seems to be possessed by Erin. While Kareen wonders if they are exclusive and paints a disturbing picture of how Garrett could be dry humping everyone, Dan and Box also ask him to clarify if they're in a monogamous relationship, and he's sure Erin will hook up with others if he doesn't. Erin hasn't set any boundaries with him because she doesn't want either of them to think they're choking each other, and they discuss Kareen's relationship with Phil instead, which has become very boring for her. Garrett's friends are more concerned about how angrily he is these days, and Dan even discusses this with an old lady as he helps her cross the road. After all this pressure, Garrett and Erin have the talk and decide to be exclusive while keeping things light and fun between them. It's November, and while Dan and Box order a lot of food, Garrett is going for the healthiest options available since he wants to look good when he meets Erin for Thanksgiving. Box thinks Garrett should also do something about his pale skin and makes him conscious about the possibility of Erin dumping him for it. When Garrett teases Box about his mustache, he clarifies that he's trying to target older women who want to feel young and get reminded of the 70s when they look at him. When Dan suggests getting a tan, Garrett doesn't think Erin is that superficial, but feels conscious about it now and decides to do it. He seems very confused during the process and ends up spraying himself everywhere. Erin is done for the day at the bar but gets a special request from a secret customer, who turns out to be Garrett, who has come to surprise her on Thanksgiving. They haven't seen each other in a long time, so they rush to the dinner table at her place and quickly undress. Kareen is surprised to find them in that position, and when she switches on the light, she also finds Phil sitting there in the dark. He claims he didn't know what to do since they came really fast while he was eating, and introduces himself to Garrett to be polite. Kareen makes sure to sanitize every part of the table before Thanksgiving dinner. Then Garrett tries to pacify the awkward incident by complimenting her mashed potatoes. Their friend Karen asks about Garrett's work at the label and finds his job of scouting bands much more exciting than what her husband Ron does for a living. Garrett explains how his and Erin's fields are in a flux, but they do it because they love it. As Erin shares her excitement about how beautifully Garrett surprised her at work with flowers, Karen starts getting upset about Ron never doing something this romantic for her. Kareen deliberately drops something at this point and takes the women to the kitchen to help her with something. Ron and Phil aren't happy about Garrett's romantic gesture and think he doesn't know what it's like to be married and are pissed because their wives will start expecting more from them now. Garrett takes Erin to watch a band perform when her friend Harper also joins them. He feels bad that such bands don't get noticed enough, and he knows his label will not let him work on a band like this one because of money. Erin thinks he needs to stand up for himself at work and make his boss listen to him if he's upset about something wrong happening in front of him. Their bartender friend from work, Damon, also joins them and apologizes for being late since he was helping his mother move closer to him. While Harper and Erin think it's very sweet he is so close to his mom, Garrett makes a joke about wanting to stay as far away from his mom as possible, making it very awkward for all of them. They try to sneak in quietly that night and starts messing around with the icing on a cake kept there. Garrett is curious about Damon and seems very jealous that Erin thinks of him as her rock at work and feels like she can't survive it without him. He tries to casually ask if something is going on between them, but she clarifies that they're just friends. Garrett offers to help Kareen clean up in the morning, but she doesn't want him anywhere near there, and his justification of their awkward encounter near the dinner table doesn't help either. Garrett is glad he made this trip to see her, despite how awkward it got with Corin, since she's very sure she hates him. But they're happy about where they stand with each other as she drops him off at the airport. Box gets scarred about Dan using the bathroom with his door open, and they discuss how great it is that they don't have to go to the bar, because Garrett seems happy after this trip. But since he told her he loves her, Box wants him about long distance and how hard it can be to be away from the person you love for so long. Garrett understands where he's coming from, but is willing to make the sacrifices because he feels like he has found the right girl. That night, he even leaves Erin a message about how much he misses her. They want to meet for Christmas but decide against it, since the flight tickets are too expensive during the holidays. They do a Christmas video call where they open each other's gifts, and love how accurate they chose for each other. When it's January, Erin calls Hugh to remind him that she worked in New York as an intern with him and asks if the paper is hiring. Hugh has recently laid off 100 employees and knows they won't hire for a long time, so she asks her to try out blogging instead. Erin is frustrated about the job and for losing her chance to be in the same city as Garrett, since things are getting tougher as they spend more time apart. Garrett tries to calm her down with the assurance of other opportunities, but Erin knows if a paper like the Sentinel fired so many people, no one else is likely to be hiring. He asks her to get a good sleep before they discuss a solution again, but she feels frustrated about how they can't even hug each other when things get tough because they are so far apart. She gets drunk with Damon and rants about how tough long distance is and how horny she is all the time. She feels bad about the job too because she doesn't want to be a waitress forever, and it's her dream to work in a newspaper. In her anger, she almost hits another man and starts a fight with him, which forces Damon to drag her out of the bar. She falls on Damon and they're very close, but she gets up immediately and leaves for her place. She wakes up on the stairs to find Maya had painted on her face and panics about the 7 messages from Garrett. He seems to be worried she didn't call last night, and even Erin feels guilty and starts apologizing for getting too drunk after her shift to vent with Damon. This makes Garrett uncomfortable, but she assures him that nothing happened between them. Garrett doesn't respond but leaves soon to meet his clients. Erin's professor wonders if she got any job offer from the Sentinel, and she explains that after checking with all newspapers in New York, she found out that there are no vacancies. He has recommended her to the Chronicle in San Francisco, and asks her to not be too picky about the location, since this space is very competitive. She knows she can't miss this chance and turns up for the interview while Garrett keeps making calls to get any job he can in San Francisco. He shouts at his phone when Brianna turns up to discuss the invite for her birthday a month from now. She explains that since Mark is coming to New York for it, she needs to plan ahead. They discuss how tough long distance is with their respective partners, and he asks if she has any ideas to make things better. After Brianna's suggestion, Garrett tries to have phone sex with Erin, but they soon realize they're not in sync with their fantasies and something forced like this will never work for them. Erin is packing to meet Garrett in New York in April when she gets a call from Sarah Canant from the Chronicle. They're impressed by her work and offer her a position at their Metro desk, and call her for a meeting in the middle of the month with the editors. When she arrives at New York, Garrett has decorated the wild place and welcomes her with flowers. Dan also shouts from his room as they're kissing since he has missed her too. While Garrett is very eager to get intimate with her, Erin asks for a minute to look at him since she has missed him a lot. He knows something is wrong, and she shares that she's tired of spending so much time apart. She also informs him about the job offer and how confused she is about whether she should take it or not. Garrett's mood suddenly changes from being supportive to being irritated that she dropped a huge bomb like this on him right after she said she doesn't want them to be far apart. She hasn't made up her mind yet, but since it's a huge opportunity for her, she wanted to discuss it with him. But he is very upset about her not mentioning that she interviewed with them also, and suggests they should go out instead. Garrett is distracted and making sure he gets as drunk as possible. Brianna turns up there as Box invited her, and Garrett asks her to have shots with him. When Erin comes over to say something, he is confused about introducing her as his girlfriend since he doesn't know where they stand with each other anymore. But Brianna is glad to meet Erin after hearing so much about her, and asks if she plans to shift to New York. Garrett finds this situation funny and asks Erin to explain how she suddenly blindsided him about getting a job, which means they will spend more time apart. Erin feels awkward but politely converses with Brianna, before informing Garrett that she will sleep over at Bandy's place that night. They still get the shots when Erin leaves and Dan comes over to join them. He claims to be a wealthy man and does everything to impress Brianna. When Erin comes to his place the next morning, Brianna is undressed and trying to escape, so she assumes something happened with her and Garrett. But as Dan comes out of the room to chase her and asks Brianna if she liked having sex with him, Erin feels relieved and decides to head to Garrett's room. As they hear Brianna being embarrassed about sleeping with Dan since she was drunk, Erin apologizes to Garrett for not telling him about the interview sooner. He's over it already and knows they will figure it out. As they're driving to the airport to drop her off, Erin knows they need to make some decisions very soon. Since Garrett has also tried all the record label companies in San Francisco and didn't get any job, he asks her to decide whether she wants to move to New York with him. She feels offended that he's asking her to give up a job and continue waitressing in New York but can't do the same for her in San Francisco. But since Garrett doesn't want to make this decision, Erin knows she is stuck deciding the next step for both of them. Erin is out for a girls' night out in a club when she gets a call from Garrett. Harper is already drunk, so she takes the phone and suggests that Erin is going to meet a guy who can actually be there for her. Erin scolds her and explains to Garrett that he doesn't need to take Harper seriously, and apologizes for discussing their fight with her. Garrett understands and wants her to know that the decision of their relationship should not be all on her. He seems confident that he wants to be with her in New York so they can build a life together in a new house and do things that real couples do. This sounds amazing to her too, and she's happier when he mentions he's flying to San Francisco to figure this out with her. Garrett rushes past Meyer in excitement to find Erin in the shower, who informs him of her final decision to move to New York with him. She seems hesitant when Corinne asks if she has informed the Chronicle about declining their offer yet, and claims she will do it soon. Corinne wants Garrett to know that she loves her sister and has seen her struggling a lot with this major decision between the job and him, and asks him to never break her heart. Phil is excited about her moving to New York, but Corinne is more concerned about what Erin has planned for her career. She is temporarily thinking about waiting tables while waiting for the newspaper business to bounce back. Phil still thinks she can write for the sake of it, but Erin is not sure she can immediately go back to writing yet. Still, she also insists she is not giving up and will surely figure something out. Garrett asks her to take a walk with him and insists that she needs to take the job at the Chronicle. They know this will mean an end to their relationship, since long distance is not working for them anymore, but he knows he can't ask her to give up everything for him again. After agreeing to end things, she drops him off at the airport for a final goodbye where they both feel sad because they thought they had something special. Box takes Garrett to the bar and offers hard liquor or other activities to heal his pain. But Garrett just feels numb at this time and wants to have beer with his best friends. After Dan's awkward hug, Garrett plays the centipede game again, and when someone comments on how great Erin's score is, Garrett knows he'll have to work very hard to beat it. 6 months later, Erin's story has been published on the front page of the Chronicle and she's doing well. She brings Corinne and Phil to check out the new place she is hoping to move into, since she got a great price for it, after there was an incident there related to a narcotics bust. When Phil and Erin are busy being excited about the place, Corinne points out the bloodstains on the wall and the creepy neighbor who keeps staring at them, which is enough for Erin to change her mind and leave. With a fake mustache, Garrett tries to gel into a reunion party of older women with Box. While Box thinks it's high time he moves on, Garrett knows this is not his scene and wants to take a step back. Dan is trying to pull off a Charlie Chaplin look but resembles Hitler a lot more. While Box wants to make fun of him, he gets distracted by an older woman asking him to dance. Dan knows this is the kind of stupid stuff he does with Box all the time and knows that if Garrett doesn't think he fits in, he doesn't have to do it with them. Garrett is looking at the page of the Boxer Rebellion, the first band he and Erin went to see together. When Erin gets back from work, Corinne points her towards a package from Garrett with 2 tickets to the band's show in San Francisco. Erin wants to go, but only if Corinne agrees to be her date. While trying to fit in, Corinne can smell urine and puke, which makes Erin thinks this is a good bar. When they're waiting for the band to start performing, Garrett bumps into them and surprises her. Corinne leaves after making an excuse, and Garrett reveals to Erin that he is managing this band now. He knows she was right about him hating his job, so he quit it and now manages the band, whose members live in Los Angeles. He points out how close that is to San Francisco, and that it's just an hour's flight away. He doesn't want to assume anything since it has been a while, but lets her know he misses her. She kisses him as the band starts performing and they discuss how Corinne just randomly left. He suggests that since they will be traveling a lot to see each other, she might want to get her own place. She explains how she's already working on it when they enter the house. As they hear a noise, they switch on the lights to find Corinne and Phil dry humping on the table, and try their best to make sure Maya doesn't come down to her parents.